Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly profound piece of Buddhist philosophy, the concept of non-reliance. If you've ever felt completely exhausted by the endless hamster wheel of chasing wealth, trying to maintain your status, or just managing your own daily anxieties, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to rigorously deconstruct what it actually means to build a foundation in your life that literally cannot crumble under pressure.
If you can transform objects, you are like the Buddha. I want you to really let that sink in, because this single principle is our anchor today. Mastering our relationship with the material world, rather than letting it control us, is the ultimate key to enlightenment. It's that massive shift from being a hostage to your external circumstances to becoming the absolute master of them. Because, when we stop depending on the crazy, volatile nature of the outside world, we finally start uncovering this profound, enduring internal peace.
So here is our roadmap for the Explainer today. We'll quickly cover 1. What non-reliance actually is. 2. How the body and mind are external. 3. The tragedy of calculation. 4. The chain reaction of jealousy. And 5. Finding the true mind.
All right, part 1. What is non-reliance? Let's unpack the concept.
Now, abstract spiritual ideas can sometimes feel a bit, disconnected from our daily lives. But non-reliance? It is highly pragmatic. Non-reliance is simply the realization that all external forms, and even our own wandering thoughts, lack true substance. They just can't be depended upon, because fundamentally, they're an illusion. They're temporary. Logically speaking, you can't build a reliable foundation for your happiness on something that is constantly shifting beneath your feet. Attempting to do so is literally like trying to build a fortress on a passing cloud. The things we desperately cling to, titles, possessions, fleeting emotions, they are intrinsically volatile. To rely on them is basically a guarantee for your own eventual suffering.
Moving right along to part 2. Body and mind are external.
This brings us to a really critical distinction. We have to draw a hard, logical line between our true mind, that eternal, immutable, true self, and what we classify as mere objects. And look closely at what falls into this category of objects, because it's not just fame or wealth. It actually includes your physical body and your wandering, anxious thoughts. These are things you merely experience, not things you fundamentally are. When we identify too closely with our physical form or that chaotic stream of thoughts in our head, we're anchoring our entire identity to things that are destined to decay or dissipate.
And that brings us to a pretty wild irony. 24. That is the number of hours a day we rely on our true mind to perceive, to exist, and to act. Yet we spend almost all of our time mistakenly letting our temporary, high-maintenance physical body run the show. We constantly confuse the vehicle for the driver. We feed the body, dress it, stress over it, entirely forgetting the eternal consciousness that's actually operating the whole thing. By pouring all our energy into just maintaining the vehicle, we totally neglect the boundless potential of the entity behind the wheel. We leave our truest self completely starved of attention.
All right, part 3. The tragedy of calculation. Let's look at a real-world parable.
To really ground these concepts, let's dive into a dramatic, real-world narrative, The Talented Cousin. So imagine this bright, noble, highly dignified figure. She was a brilliant artist, an acclaimed writer, and a high-ranking military leader. And despite coming from the humbler side of her family tree, her sheer excellence and intense personal effort brought her immense success. But unfortunately, that very excellence attracted some intense, toxic envy from her own blood relatives. Her light, without her even trying, cast a long, dark shadow over those who just refused to cultivate their own inner worth.
Contrast her with our cousins, the scheming relatives. Despite having this grand, wealthy background and a top-tier education, they put in absolutely zero personal effort. Instead of working on self-improvement, they became entirely consumed by envy, spending their days plotting to steal her identity. Just notice the deep irony here. They had every material object they could ever possibly want, yet their internal state was completely impoverished. Their outward nobility masked this hollow, calculating emptiness. It just goes to show that material abundance absolutely cannot cure spiritual bankruptcy.
And the escalation of their plot? Wow, it reveals some incredibly dark depths of calculation. First, they tried to steal her official artist's seal. Then, when asked to actually prove his artistic skills, the lazy brother faked a broken arm to get out of the test. But it gets worse. His own sister, who wanted to claim the famous artist title solely for herself, secretly mixed bone-breaking powder into his medicine. She literally permanently crippled her own sibling, sacrificing her family just for an external, temporary title. It is the ultimate, tragic manifestation of mistaking an object for true human value.
But here's the catch. While you can forge an object, you cannot fake the true mind. The inevitable collapse happened when the sister was publicly forced to authenticate paintings and couldn't tell the real ones from the fakes. The whole web of lies unraveled instantly. Her crimes were exposed, leading to life in prison for her, total madness for her brother, and absolute ruin for the mother who encouraged it all. They lost absolutely everything because they tried to steal a substance that fundamentally cannot be stolen. The illusion of their reliance entirely shattered.
Which leads us to part 4, the chain reaction of jealousy.
So why is it that people with every material advantage end up completely destroying themselves? Well, it's a very precise, catastrophic psychological descent. Let's trace it. Step 1 starts with greed for an external object, usually status and fame. Step 2, when that greed isn't fulfilled, it curdles into a bitter hatred of lacking. Step 3, that internal hatred projects outward as intense, burning jealousy of others. And finally, step 4, that jealousy drives ruthless calculation, toxic plotting, and absolute ruin. It's a domino effect. One unchecked attachment to an object leads inexorably to complete moral collapse.
I want to pause and challenge you for a second. Think about your own life. Have you ever plotted against someone out of jealousy? Have you ever let the lack of an object, maybe a promotion, a job title, or just societal recognition, drive you to toxic envy? Okay, we might not be slipping bone-breaking powder into anyone's tea, but let's be real, we all calculate. We gossip, we undermine, we strategize. And every single time we do, we mirror those scheming relatives, disastrously mistaking the external world for our true internal value. We essentially barter away our peace of mind for the sheer illusion of control over the uncontrollable.
And that brings us to our final section, finding the true mind.
To pull all of these principles together, realize that all this desperate scheming is just utterly futile. Fame is fleeting. Wealth cannot be permanently held in your hands. Even our physical body eventually breaks down. Everything external is merely borrowed. When you exhaust your mind plotting to capture these objects, you are fighting a losing battle against the very laws of nature, agonizing over things you fundamentally cannot keep anyway. The profound realization of non-reliance is simply accepting that the transient world was never meant to be tightly grasped in the first place.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly powerful thought. You have to return everything except your true mind. Everything you acquire in this lifetime is basically a rental, and one day the lease is up. The only thing that remains, the absolute only thing that is truly, intrinsically yours, is that eternal, immutable true mind. So ask yourself today, what are you actually chasing? Are you exhausting your life for objects you inevitably have to give back? Or are you going to begin cultivating the one thing you actually get to keep? Thank you so much for joining this explainer. Until next time, remember to look inward.